No comment. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Pots and Pans Network brings to you its Tag Team Champions of the World. The Road Dogg, Tino Gray, the badass Rob. You don't want to do that. Rob Potsy Potchak. That's right, the Potsy and Tino show. We are back, folks. We did show up last week for 2 minutes and 56 seconds. Our theme song usually is brought to you by Adam's House Cats, called The Wrestling Song. It's available on iTunes for the low price of 99 cents. We're brought to you by the Pots and Pans Network. And this week, we're brought to you by Amador.
I think we might sue because if you said we're bought by Amador and Amador sees this and they haven't signed off on it, we could get sued.
Well, I think that they would prefer the free advertising since they didn't pay us to advertise.
Possibly, but we're claiming to be sponsored by them and they don't know nothing about it.
It's a free sponsorship. They're cool with it, I'm sure, because it's free for them to sit there. And
your name's on that channel.
What's that?
I'm glad your name's on the channel, so when they sue, they can't sue me.
Well, it is Bourbon 30, or as I like to say, right before 8 o'clock. And Tino, we are live. We are in living color. And as it says, folks, subscribe to the channel. It's youtube.com/Rob Potchak. And well, we pretty much took a week off last week. We got to go see a hockey game.
That was cool.
And I want to go ahead and explain to the world out there that you have been to 2 live hockey games, right?
Been more than that. I've been 2 with you.
Okay. But the 2 that you've seen with me, you have now seen a hat trick, which is for the people out there that don't understand hockey. That's 3 goals scored by 1 member of a team, and that was Sebastian Aho that did that. And the other time that you went to a hockey game with me, you got to see what was called the Michigan goal, which. The reason why it's called the Michigan is because the first person that ever accomplished it was a college kid from Michigan. And what that goal is they pick the puck up with their stick and drop it in behind the goalie. So the goalie has no idea that it's coming because normally the puck's on the ice. And you got to see that goal as well. It's only been accomplished twice in the NHL ever in all the time that it's been there, and you got to see one of the 2 times it ever happened. And I didn't. And Tino, would you like to explain why I didn't get to see it?
You did get to see it.
I was in person at the event, but right before that, Tino had slapped me in the chest to get my attention. So I turned to look at him, and he was talking about, I think, Gilmore Girls or some crazy bullshit.
Gilmore Girls, shut up.
You literally were talking about like Twilight or Saved by the Bell or some weird ass shit. And I missed seeing it live in front of us.
You saw the replay. You saw it live.
Yeah, everybody saw the replay on ESPN.
You saw it. You just saw it like right after it happened on the replay on the big screen.
I was so mad.
Big baby.
I was so bad.
He was. He was so pissed off.
I almost threw you down the lane of chairs. Oh yeah. So Tino, that's a good way to start the episode. But we normally like to start with a little segment we like to call
What's Up With You?
What's Up With You? So let's hear it. What's going on with you? And don't say nothing really, because that makes people tune out.
Who's tuned in right now?
Well, I don't see anybody tuned in right now, but that doesn't mean they won't be, sir.
I had a show last week. What's the last Friday? I had an early show in Clayton, North Carolina. It's like 5 to 7. That was a cool little show. Haley came home. We did Mother's Day with Nicole on Sunday, which was cool. We just pretty much chilled around the house. Haley got up and cooked everybody pancakes and bacon, and then we chilled and gave the dogs a bath. And my brother-in-law came over, and we just pretty much shot the shit all day. And then we ordered in Cheesecake Factory for dinner because that's what she wanted. So I went out and got it, brought it back. And then today I woke up this morning because I was going to take hamburger meat out for.
You're going to take what?
Hamburger meat out for dinner. And as I got in the freezer, I noticed that the ice trays that we filled up last night were still water. Excuse me. And I pulled out the hamburger meat and it was already starting to defrost. I'm like, fudge. And so I realized something's going on with the refrigerator. I called my neighbor across the street who used to work for an appliance company. He said, yeah. He said, it sounds like it might, he tried to troubleshoot it and he had me take the back off. So it sounds like it's the compressor. I'm like, So I had Haley, which we were babysitting. Haley was babysitting my godson, one of my godsons. And so I'm like, well, I'll watch him. I need you to go to the store and get me like 4 bags of ice. And so we're taking shit out of the refrigerator, putting it in coolers on ice. And then I had to go get the part, which all we needed was just the relay switch. So it wasn't actual compressors, like the relay switch and the whatever fuse, whatever. My neighbor came over, he fixed it. But in the meantime, all the meat that was in our freezer had defrosted or thawed out. So
you gotta cook it.
That's what we were doing. So when you text me earlier, I'm like, we're cooking it. So we've cooked hamburgers, hamburger meat. We've cooked. We've got chicken in there that I'll cook tomorrow. We're gonna make wings again tomorrow. I had wings Saturday. We're gonna have wings again tomorrow. There was a big ass ham in there my wife cooked, so we're probably eating ham for the next couple of days. It's just trying to cook everything. So that's why you were like, you coming over? I'm like, no, because we're pull everything out.
You could have thrown stuff in my freezer.
Nah, by the time I got there, for what, and then drive another hour when we wanted it,
or leave it over here for the next time we do a wrestling event and then cook it.
Nah, no, we had like Costco stuff. It was like,
I know. I got a thing of carnitas that's in my freezer that's like this big, and it's like it's for me, Yeah. So that's going to be like a week's worth of pork.
So it's a bit, and like I said, push comes to shove. My father-in-law's 8 minutes away. We're taking stuff over there, but we had enough. We just cooked it, and then we're gonna cook it and then freeze it back, and then just take it out and we need it again. I'm like, so it was fun. It was fun. So that was my excitement for the day.
Nice.
Tomorrow, and then we'll be babysitting again for tomorrow, probably Wednesday. I'm working from home, so it's cool. I get to chill with the baby and work from home tomorrow. I have that's why I was like, need to get out of here today because I got conference Zoom things pretty much all day, and that's gonna be fun, and webinars and so classes, and I just got a bunch of shit to do tomorrow.
Woo! Always fun. Always fun.
What about you, sir?
Well, so I don't know. I've had a lot of stuff going on, but I don't know if it's like a lot of like fun, interesting stuff or whatever. But I'll go ahead and I'll start. I've been doing my sketch and sips.
Yeah.
So it hit me like middle of last week. I should probably scan all those images in and do a Kickstarter.
Well, you were talking about it at the hockey game. You're talking about doing the book thing.
Yeah. So at this point, the plan is now to basically, and I mean, just to give you an idea, because it's right next to my scanner. Here is a stack of the different artwork that I have accumulated just since the beginning of this year. So there's a big positive of having that creative juice flowing and you know, drawing and doing all that stuff. But I've gone through like 4 sketchbooks already this year, and we're in May.
So how big so for those who don't know, how big are your sketchbooks?
Typically about 60 pages a piece. So I mean, like that's 240 drawings roughly in 5 months. And for those that don't actually know what I do when I'm doing my sketch and sips, I basically just ask people randomly, like, who's your favorite cartoon character, or who's your favorite superhero, or whatever, and I just, you know, I'll be sitting somewhere and I'll just doodle, right? And I don't allow myself to take more than 15 minutes on each piece of artwork. So the reason behind that is because I want to see whether or not I can truly gather the shapes and everything and make it look like the character it's supposed to look like in about 15 minutes so that I can move directly to the next one. And I do that for, I don't know, 2 hours a night when I do it. So, I mean, like, I'm doing up to 10 pieces of artwork each time I'm sitting out there, which is just kind of nutty. So I've started cutting it back to try to do like 5 pieces of art when I do it. Cause I mean, like I'm literally going through notebooks, you know, like in 2 weeks, I have to go get another sketchbook, you know? So I'm taking the ones that I really liked from all of it. And I'm really contemplating putting together, and for those that don't already follow my Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Rob Pochak. I posted like what's going to be the cover, which was a Batman and Joker drawing that I did like one of the first nights that I did these sketch and sips, but it was actually a photo taken that showed the beverage and showed the markers and everything else. So I just thought it was a really cool photo, and it was by Terrence. So I pretty much asked him for permission. He gave me permission to do it. So I'm actually really seriously putting thought into trying to do probably 100-page art book that people will be able to buy, and you know,
good.
Yeah. So and you know, there's full color artwork. I've got a bunch of black and whites here that I did as well. That
I'm trying to find that picture you sent me. I don't know how well it's going to show up on the. That's good.
You know, but like here's a Daredevil piece that never got completed. Here's a Ghost Rider piece that I did.
I don't know if you can. I'm gonna turn my light off for a minute. No, that didn't help.
No.
Nah.
If you, there it is. So yeah, so that's what we're looking at. Probably go through the rest of the sketchbook that I'm working on right now, and then gather up more of the artwork from there, and then really try to just knock out a really cool looking art book. At this point, I feel comfortable enough actually doing the formatting and the editing and everything, because, you know, I did the coloring book last year, so I feel comfortable doing all that stuff. And then the pages have started coming in for Junior High Horrors. So about halfway through the latest Junior High Horrors book, Eric just actually, while we're sitting here, just messaged me telling me that another 4 pages are in the Dropbox. So when I get off here, I'll either watch, you know, Monday Night Raw, or I'll knock out those 4 pages, you know, putting all the wording and everything on those before calling it a night tonight. So that's some of the cool stuff going on. I've got Carolina Fear Fest coming up at the end of the month. So anybody that wants to go to a horror convention will be, I believe it'll be me and possibly Billy Parker from both Junior High Horrors and the D Ward.
Where's that going to be?
That's going to be at Dorton Arena.
And what day? When?
That is May. It's either 28th and 29th, or, you know what? Here, let me figure out what it's a Saturday and Sunday. It is the 29th and 30th. So it's Memorial Day weekend, which is perfect for, people wanting to get out and do stuff. The downside is it's 2 days before Governor Cooper's supposed to lift all the restrictions and let as many people into a place as can possibly fit in them. So it'll be interesting to see how they go around that. I actually don't mind if they keep it limited in the amount of people. Like this year, they're supposed to be limiting the amount of actual vendors in the venue, so that way, like it allows for better social distancing and spacing. So I think it'll be cool. I think it'll be a great show for me anyway, because it's set up to be a success for us. Obviously with me being a children's comic book, it's something that anybody who brings their kids into that event, the kids are going to see it. They're going to be like, "Ooh, I want that."
Ooh.
So that'll do pretty well. And then I'm supposed to have another convention event scheduled sometime around Father's Day, and the announcement's supposed to come out from them about that in the next couple days. So I'm not really at liberty to sit there and say it yet, but there is another convention coming up in June, and I'm pretty excited about that one. So things are starting to move around with that already, and it's gonna be pretty interesting to see how it moves forward from there.
Cool.
Yeah. And then of course I've started coming up with all new crazy ideas, like I keep joking about all this stuff that I'm working on, and last night, instead of doing my normal sketch and sips where I'm drawing other people's characters and stuff, I've been toying with the idea of NFTs and things like that. So I'm pulling up on my phone. I'm trying.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I did this character that I call the Space Pug. And as you can see, I mean, it's a fully done piece of art. I'm thinking about scanning it in and actually using that as my first trial NFT to see, whether or not the digital, if I scan it in and, clean up the artwork some or whatever using, digital processes, see whether or not I can sell it. But I started coming up with ideas for the character and stuff as I was doing it. So I'm like, man, what'd be really cool? So if I did a backup story in like an issue of Junior High Horrors of these other characters, and see whether or not people start asking for more of those characters, and then transitioning that off into possibly its own book at some point. So who knows? If I do that, who knows what'll go on with it? But I just thought it was really cool to draw a pug in a spacesuit. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I got this name in mind, Captain Kibble. So,
Captain Kibble.
I mean, it's a
USS Gravy Train.
Well, no, funny. That'll get me sued. But when I was sitting there talking about it, like I love the idea that the pug isn't the captain. Like the captain would be like a cat or something named Captain Kibble, and the dog would be named Bits. So you'd have Kibbles and Kibble and Bits. But it's not original, but it's funny.
Yeah.
So I kind of like it, but yeah. So that's really kind of what's going on with me. The weekend was uneventful. I mean, we did have Mother's Day with my mom, which was great. She wanted. I don't know if she was the one that determined what we ate for food, but my sister called me up and was like, "Hey, do you mind chipping in for the food?" And I'm like, how much food did you buy? How much food is it? And how much do you want for it? Because she made it sound like I was the only one chipping in, right?
40.
Yeah. And they bought City Barbecue. So of course, by the time they get done ordering all the food, it's like $250 worth of food because it was my whole immediate family, my sister Carrie Ann's family, who you got to hang out a little bit with at the hockey game, my other sister Shorty's family, you know, her and her husband, and then our friend's Fubar and his family. So like all of us were there. So I mean, there was like 14 people at dinner last night. But I sat there and I said, I think you ordered way too much food, and lo and behold, half the food is still around. So, but yeah, so we did that, and then Saturday, man, somehow I got roped into yard work over at my brother-in-law's house, and it's funny because Thursday he's trying to get me to come over and have some beers with him, right? And I'm like, I'm not going out. I'm just gonna chill. I'm not doing anything tonight. Just gonna play video games, that kind of stuff. And you know, all of a sudden, he sends me a message when I'm like, I'm just not going out. He finally sends me a message that says, hey, can you help me with yard work on Saturday? And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, mulching. Okay. And it's because, I mean, he's got a lot of bushes and stuff, so he wanted to mulch underneath all the bushes. And then of course, down near their lake area, there's that entire like little tree area that he's got, and he wanted to mulch all that. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, I get that message, and the first thing that I write back, which is 100% true, is, you do realize that's probably my second least favorite thing in the entire world to do. Like, straight up. And then even before I sent that message, I said, but I'll help if you need it. I would just prefer not to. Because I hate the work. I don't like doing it. That's why I bought a townhouse, so I don't have to do yard work. Turns out I have to do yard work at my own place too, because I've got weeds coming up in my mulch area.
Yep.
Which pisses me off. But you know, I'm willing to sit there and pull out, you know, in the 5-foot area, I'm willing to pull weeds out of it. So I do that, and I mean, it was like 3.5 hours of work. It was me, him, and our buddy Fubar, and you know, it looks like 3 middle-aged guys that don't know how to mulch doing the mulch work. But so we did that, and now like the muscle right here is just so stressed that like all day yesterday my hands didn't want to come out of this position. And it was like, well, at least I can grab a drink, because you know, like your hand fits that position perfectly. But then of course my mom asked us if we could actually trim her shrubs for her, and like, you've been over at her house, they're not shrubs anymore, they're fucking trees. Okay, they're fucking trees that she wants trimmed. And she bought this really cool shrubber that is, you know, the normal like it looks like it looks like a chainsaw, but it's not a chainsaw. It's just the one that sits there and just moves really quick. Yeah. But it's got this long pole on it. Well, it's so oblong that when you're trying to hold it up there and do what you're supposed to with it, shit weighs like 60 pounds. So you're sitting there like, what the hell is this all about? Like who does this? But because my arms hurt so much, it was like I'm sitting there holding the thing like this, going, you know, like. So yeah, so and so
yard work all weekend is what you're saying.
What's that?
So you did yard work all weekend is what you're saying.
Not all weekend, but you know, interestingly enough, the one thing she normally has me do, which is climb onto her roof and blow it off with you know, the blower, she didn't have me do that this week. But it looks like it needs it, so I'm sure I'll get a phone call here in, you know, a week or two to do that too. But and the reason why I'm the one that gets called to do it is because even though I'm afraid of heights like everybody else in my family, I'm not afraid enough to go 40 feet up in the air and look down over the edge, apparently. You know, because my mom's house is that bi-level type of house. So when you climb all the way up to the very far tippy top of the house and you're blowing it off, when you look over, it's a 40-foot drop because it's 2 full stories at that point. You know, so it's actually, I guess, almost three stories. Yeah, because it's split level. So I mean, it's, Yeah, so I mean, there's at least 20 stairs in between the very bottom and the top. So I mean, it's a pretty hefty look down. Not to mention she's got an attic as well, so it's even taller. So yeah, so there was that. Yeah, that's pretty much everything that's happened with me this week.
Cool.
You know, besides the day job, which they added like 3 new tasks that I have to do on a daily basis, which because today was the first day I had to do them, I had no idea what I was doing, and it took like 2.5 hours for the first one. And then I was like, oh shit, how am I going to get the other stuff done before noon when I couldn't even get this done until like 11:30? So
you're not.
Apparently. But you know, they put me on a project this time where like I have to learn the project. After I learn the project, I'm supposed to sit there and see whether or not there are ways to streamline the project. Because again, it took me 2.5 hours to do it today. Now, the second time I did it, because you do it twice a day, the second time I did it, it only took me like 45 minutes because I didn't screw it up the second time. You know, but the first time it was like trial and error, trying to figure it all out. And then it was, okay, now retrace your steps and do it the exact same way that you know you did it correctly. Okay. So, but it's too difficult to explain. So it is what it is. So Tino, if that's all that's going on with you and that's all that's going on with me, you know.
Oh no, my favorite time. Yes.
You like a little segment that we like to call the GameStop story of the week. And at some point it's going to be the Tino McDonald story of the week, because I'm going to run out of stories at some point.
I only had a couple, and I've told my McDonald stories.
But I figured today I would give you the option of hearing the story of when I met a celebrity. Okay? And here are the celebrities you can choose from. You can choose, if we want to go wrestling, you can go The Miz. You can go Mark Henry. You can go Kelly. Let's see, who else did I meet? Or you can go with the time I met Adam West, the 1960s Batman. Or, and I kind of want to save this one, or we could talk about the time I met Stan Lee.
I don't think I've heard the Miz story. I've heard all the other ones.
So you want the Miz story first?
Yeah.
All right. So the really cool thing about working at GameStop was managers conference. And, you know, I've told a couple stories about different times that, you know, different things have happened in either Vegas or Anaheim or San Antonio or whatever. One of the really cool things is that 2K would always bring at least one WWE wrestler and like one NBA basketball player. Okay. Now, the year that we went to, I want to say it was San Antonio. They brought, oh wait, no, maybe it was Dallas. So like one of my first years, we go to Dallas and 2K brings Vince Carter. Okay. So now you being a Carolina fan, but us living in North Carolina, you see Vince Carter all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like in fact, I have a Vince Carter story. I watched as he played in my high school gymnasium against other NBA hopefuls because they weren't allowed to practice at Carolina because they would have went over their practice time. So they all just went out and played basketball at the different high schools in the area. So they ended up playing at like my high school. It was like him, it was Grant Hill, it was you know, a bunch of different guys from Duke and Carolina because they were all friends. They didn't, you know, that whole rivalry thing is bullshit. Yeah. But so the year that we did that, we're in the 2K room, and you know they do trainings where you actually have to listen to like what the new features are and what the new graphics system is, and you know, and we're all just sitting there going, can SmackDown versus Raw just be like the old No Mercy game and be cool again, or like what's the deal, you know? So they show this video, and it's a video of Randy Orton. Okay. And Randy Orton's like, I really wished I could be there with you guys this year, but the champ has to be the champ. So, and I'm not even supposed to like you guys anymore because I'm a bad guy now. But, with all that said, really hope you have a great holiday season and sell that WWE 2K game or whatever it was back then. I think it was like SmackDown versus Raw, whatever. Well, we're sitting there going, damn, Randy Orton was here last year? That's awesome. Like this is like my first conference. I'm like, man, Randy Orton was here. That was really cool. And then they give you a chance to win like a Stone Cold belt, just by doing a raffle or whatever. And I'm like, man, it'd be really cool to win that Stone Cold belt. And then like at that point, one of the guys that's been there for a couple of years is like, Rob, they're getting ready to announce who's going to be at the show, and we'll get to meet him. And I'm like, oh, so there's going to be a wrestler there? This is really cool. And lo and behold, they announced The Miz, who back then was the guy being kicked out of the locker room and like basically being told, hey, you got to do all the dirty shit because you got to pay your dues, kid. So like nobody liked The Miz. Nobody liked him.
Oh man.
And it was like Baron Corbin heat. It was everybody just hated him to hate him, and it was like, all right, well, I like pro wrestling. Tino will get a kick out of me going up and getting a picture with him, or whatever. So I walk up through the line and I'm waiting there, and the line's not that long because nobody likes The Miz. And it's not like it was Miz and Maurice, because at least then everybody would want to get their picture with Maurice. But it was, so I walk up to him and I'm like, hey man, is there any way I can get a picture of you punching me in the face? Because it's like, oh, take a picture, one of those or whatever. And it's like, and he goes, like, for real? And I'm like, I mean, if you want to hit me, that's fine. I'll, like, I think it'd be cool to have a story where you actually punched me in the face. And he's like, probably can't do that. And he looks up at his handler, and his handler's like, nah, you can't do that. So he's like, but, I can. And so that started the history of every year I would go and I would ask one of the wrestlers to punch me in the face. So there's a picture of me on the internet like this, because The Miz looks like he's punching me in the face. And of course The Miz has that smug like look on his face while he's sitting there punching at me, and it's just a really cool moment.
I think my favorite one is you and Mark Henry though.
And so that one, the whole story with Mark Henry was in the training room with us, and he was actually explaining like the changes in the game and everything himself, which I thought was really cool because it shows exactly how much he cares about the franchise and everything else at that point. And I'll go ahead and I'll tell the Mark Henry one since you brought it up. So Mark Henry was just in the training rooms. He wasn't supposed to be signing autographs or anything else or taking pictures with anybody. So what he did, because Dolph Ziggler was the guy that was actually signing autographs and everything else, Mark Henry walked through the line and had like a picture of Dolph Ziggler in his hands, and he's like, is there any way I can get you to sign this for me, Mr. Ziggler? You're my favorite wrestler ever. And it's just a trip, because like he's literally like, please, Mr. Ziggler, you're my favorite. Can you help me out here? Can you sign it for me? And of course, Ziggler being a ribber himself is like, sure, kid, what's your name? and then of course I walk up to Henry right after that, and I'm like, Mark Henry, man, thanks for being in the room, talking to us about everything. It was really cool to see you doing all that. I was wondering if I could get a picture, because I didn't actually wait in line for Dolph Ziggler. So apparently he was only signing for like an hour, and we only had like a 4-hour window. There's a 4-hour window, but he's only signing for an hour. So I was like, I see Mark Henry there. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna go talk to Mark Henry. So I asked Mark Henry for a podcast spot, and he's like, man, I gotta tell you, I really don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna force it. I'm not gonna be that asshole that sits there and goes, hey, can you, because everyone else has always said yes. He was the first guy that said no. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And I said, well, can I get a picture with you? And he goes, all right, yeah, we could do that. And I'm like, sweet. And I was like, any way I can get it looking like you're punching me in the face. And he goes, I really don't want to do that either. and suddenly it wasn't just a, hey, I'm being nice. It was a, I really don't want to do that. And I was like, well, can you just like bow up? And he's like, you mean like this? And he just, like, all of a sudden, he just went Hall of Pain. And I was like, yeah. and snapped the picture like, like. And I was like, man, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. This is just for me. Obviously I'm going to post it on social media because it's just super cool to, but thanks for being a really good sport about it. And he's like, no problem, man. You have fun the rest of the night or whatever. I gotta go make sure Dolph's okay. And then he like literally walked over to see if Dolph needed anything. Like he had to be a chauffeur or whatever.
That's
so yeah, so there's this week's GameStop story of the week. And unfortunately, we still don't have anybody watching us. Like, so I don't even know if we're online or not. I'm kidding. We're online. We're live.
Oh shit. Okay.
What's that? I
was like, oh shit. Well,
I don't know. Like now I'm gonna pull up the YouTube on the phone and see. I believe we're live right now.
I think we're live too.
Yes, we are live.
Good.
So and that was the GameStop story of the week. So Tino,
let's do it.
You want to get out of here by 9:30? There's a lot to talk about. So let's jump right in and let's start at the end instead of the beginning. Let's talk about the WWE biography on A&E of one Booker T. Huffman.
I haven't watched it, but I'm going to watch it. So if you want to talk about it, that's cool. It's no fault. I mean, I'm gonna watch it anyway.
So I had already said that Booker T had talked about a lot of his career during the during one of his specials on WWE Network.
Mm-hmm.
And this really kind of filled in some gaps on top of all of that. So I won't spoil most of it for you, but I will give you like a timeline of what they discussed. They obviously talk about his upbringing. They talk about, him getting in trouble. And then they go into like when he started wrestling and everything else. And they talk about probably his most embarrassing moment in pro wrestling history.
G.I. Bro.
No, even worse than that.
When he called Hulk Hogan the N-word.
And they talked about it, which is really interesting. Now on top of that, they then discussed like how Booker T ended up becoming the TV champion after that, and how he was the first guy to cross the lines after the WWE was, bought WCW. He was the first guy. And they discussed how when he showed up as the WCW champion, they were supposed to do an angle that was going to be WCW champion Booker T versus WWF champion at the time, Steve Austin. But when Booker T picked him up, and I remember we were watching that pay-per-view with our buddy Leonard, and Leonard yelled out of nowhere, "Oh my God, it's K-Quick!" Do you remember that?
Yes.
And we were like, "That's Booker T," and he's like, "Oh." And the only reason why you can,
about that,
I mean, there's two reasons why you can make that mistake, but the main one was Booker T finally started letting his hair grow out at that point. So I could see that he kind of had it up, it was whatever. By the way, it's saying our connection's getting a little bit slow. So if all of a sudden I freeze up or anything, we'll be back as soon as we can. It looks like my signal's back. So, but when he picked Steve Austin up, he threw him through the announce table. Well, Steve Austin said that he was so sweaty from wrestling for 30 minutes against whoever it was that he was wrestling that he slid right off the table and right into a chair and cracked 3 of his bones in his back. So that's why Austin and Booker T, I think, only really ever had one match, because Austin was taking it easy, and that's why they did the segments where it was like in the grocery store and everything.
Which those were hysterical.
Which were great, especially when he's like, price check on Jackass.
Let's change diaper. You want to change the diaper, your baby? You would have burnt the baby.
So, interestingly enough, so I've now watched, because I finally did catch the Stone Cold Steve Austin one.
That was good.
I watched the Roddy Piper one, and I watched the Savage one.
They're all good.
Well, the Savage one's catching a lot of flack.
Wow.
And well, because it wasn't really a biography on Randy Savage. It was a biography on Randy Savage, Lex Luger, Miss Elizabeth, Gorgeous George, and it really wasn't about Randy. And I don't know if that's because Randy was a very shadowed character that didn't like letting his personal life out into the spotlight, or what the deal was. But I thought it was a good show until I started hearing everybody else bashing at the fact that they made like 30 minutes of it about Miss Elizabeth. Now, Miss Elizabeth getting married to Randy was perfectly fine to be part of it because it was such a big part of his actual career and life. But when she left him, it's his biography, not their biography. Yeah. You get what I mean? So I totally understand where they were coming from with that. It was kind of annoying to see all that. Now, I just watched the Steve Austin one because it just recorded on my DVR this week. And that one was excellent. Like they didn't have a bad thing to say about him at all, apparently. Which is funny because he did have multiple like spousal abuse cases and stuff. And it wasn't just him beating up his wife. A lot of it apparently was his ex-wife was beating him up. Yeah. So, when you think about the biggest badass in pro wrestling history, and you're talking about his biography, you would think that they're going to talk about some of the dirt, and they really didn't do that. They also didn't talk about really, they said it, but they didn't really talk about Austin in that bad place, after he gets told he's supposed to do the job to Brock Lesnar in the first round of the King of the Ring tournament.
He took his ball and went home.
Right. And that's all they said about it. Like that should have been something where they really dug in.
No, he talked about it and why he did it and how he had to come back and apologize to everybody,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really to say he didn't like what they said. He didn't think it was right. He fucking left, realized the worst mistake of his life, came back, had to apologize, and rolled on.
Yeah, but
what all do you want them to go in depth about?
I mean, it's how they remember history now. And that's the way it is with all this stuff. Like them talking about Roddy Piper being such a great family man and everything else. He may have been, but they only glazed over the idea that he was doing drugs. This is your biography. This is supposed to be good and bad. Like with Savage, they definitely, they had Jake the Snake Roberts sit there and say, he was definitely doing something. I'm not sure what it was, but he was doing it.
What eventually they're going to do, they're going to put this on Peacock. Peacock's being pussy and wants to have everything G-rated. So I think that's probably why they're watering it down.
Now, interestingly enough, you say that, and right after the announcement that Peacock was actually like editing out certain things, like Roddy Piper's half black face.
Yeah.
They just completely cut that out of the pay-per-view. In fact, I think they just cut that pay-per-view off of Peacock at this point, right? They'll probably edit the episode back in and just edit all those scenes out. But immediately after they did that, they showed a WWE the day of or whatever, when it was all about Mick Foley and Edge at WrestleMania in a hardcore match that ended with Mick Foley getting burnt. So for everything that they talked about where it's like, oh man, we have to worry about how much they're going to censor this. They didn't censor that for shit.
Mm-mm.
And that was on Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in fact, I think they did that on purpose. I think that they had that in the queue. They were going to put it out. But then when they started editing certain things that weren't culturally sensitive anymore, that all of a sudden they were like, oh, but we still allow violence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was that's just how I felt about that. But anyways, the Booker T biography I thought was really good. However, I would watch it with the episode of like the WWE Treasures that they're doing on A&E as well, because they actually do an episode with Booker T.
Yeah, I got that recorded too.
So watch both of them together, because in the episode with Booker T's searching for that television championship.
Okay.
You know, because he's like, that means the world to me. So I want that to be like because I think what they're doing is they're hunting all this stuff down so they can actually start a Hall of Fame for real.
Yeah.
And
a museum too, they were saying.
What's that?
Like a museum. They want like a museum.
Yeah, but that's what you would have at a Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
So you buy a building and you just create the WWE's, museum and Hall of Fame or whatever. So but that show's been really good too. Like I love the one about Jerry the King Lawler, because they go so much into the Andy Kaufman stuff. And I'd heard all the Andy Kaufman stuff at this point and knew that it was the interesting thing about it is that it was the first real, like in a box sports entertainment.
Yeah.
Because before that you'd have athletes wrestling, but you never had like that break the wall between entertainment and sport and have, like your Bad Bunny versus Miz moment. You never had anything like that. And the Andy Kaufman thing really led to that specifically. And, they pretty much now say that without Andy Kaufman and Jerry the King Lawler doing their stuff in Memphis, that WrestleMania may have never happened, because Vince McMahon wouldn't have ever tried to put MTV and wrestling together.
And Jerry Lawler even said that if it hadn't been for Andy Kaufman, he wouldn't be here. He's saying that put him on the map.
Now, interestingly enough, and I know this says WWE biography for Booker T, but the Jerry the King Lawler episode of Treasures, they actually showed a super fan who owned the shirt that was on Jerry Lawler when he had his cardiac arrest.
Yes, and they went into that. I didn't think they were going to, but they talked about his cardiac arrest.
You could tell that Lawler was a little taken aback by it.
He said, "Because I saw that out the corner of my eye."
And then of course Jerry Lawler did the right thing to try to get the boots from the guy, because he actually had a pair of ring worn boots from Lawler versus Andy Kaufman, and Triple H. I love how they always have someone seal the deal. Like in the Booker T episode, like Stone Cold Steve Austin seals the deal for him.
Oh, okay.
But in this one, like Triple H is sitting there, and he's like, "What's it going to take to get you to do it?" Right? And the guy's like, "Well, I'll tell you what. If you give me $5,000, which is already $500 more than what he was originally being offered for, you give me $500 more than what we've already established is like the highest price you guys are going to do, and we get Jerry the King Lawler to draw me."
Yeah.
And that piece of artwork was amazing.
Yes.
Like
he
that was.
Did it. He sat there and did a sketch and sit right there.
Except Jerry the King Lawler's never drank.
Yeah. So those Treasures are good shows, man.
They are. So all right, Tino. Last week, did you watch Monday Night Raw?
I did. I like RK Bro.
So, and I'm glad you asked. You said that because I want to pose the question: is Rated RK Bro? I guess it's just RK. I just Team RK Bro.
It's RK Bro.
RK Bro. So yeah, for whatever reason, I keep trying to add edge to it and make it a three-way match. I guess. So RK Bro, are they the new established
Team Hell No?
Hell No.
I saw your thing.
Are they the new Team Hell No? Like are we going to expect that at some point Randy's going to be the one that's like, bro? Like.
I think so. I think right now it's their chemistry together. It's two people you would think had nothing to do, but they're so funny together. My favorite part from last week, and it's something so stupid. Riddle's trying to talk, and Orton goes, and so Riddle does this and zips it, and Orton goes, They let him give him the key, and then it's like little subtle stuff like that.
And you have to figure, you have to figure that Randy Orton does that with his kids.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing, is he's treating Riddle like his child.
But it is so funny to see that he's doing it with such a straight face, and I think that's what makes it so funny. You don't expect the Viper to be like,
yeah, exactly. It's definitely showing a side of Randy that we haven't seen in a while, if ever. Yeah. And the only thing that would make it better is if like R-Truth brought back little Jimmy, and Randy Orton was actually like talking to little Jimmy.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's going to end up happening because if you notice in the past 2 times that they've tagged, Riddle's trying to get that pose down. He's trying to stand in front of and do his thing, and he wants Randy to stand behind him. The first week, Randy's like, no. This week, you notice, or this past week, he kind of stood there while Riddle did his thing, and Randy kind of. So I'm sooner or later, Riddle's going to hit his pose, and Randy's going to hit the, behind him.
Yeah, I see it. I see it being a slow build to an actual tag team, but with all tag teams like this, at some point there's an implosion, and what everyone is worried about is who goes over in that feud. Because
Randy knows that I think they're trying to get, and I don't know if Riddle necessarily needs the rub, but I think they're trying to elevate Riddle, trying to get him higher. Because I think Randy's in the mode now where he's still got it, but I think he's finally figuring out where he's going to put over the younger guys to try to keep it going. I
mean, he's 40. 41 probably, because in 2004 I think he was 24, right?
Yeah.
So I mean he's 40. Riddle's probably 28. So it makes sense for them to start building like a Matt Riddle here. I love it. I think it's great because it really does. So it reminds me of when Steve Austin turned heel. He got to be comedic. This is the opposite. Randy went from being heel to now he's becoming a baby face again, but he's doing it in a way that he hasn't done it in a long time. But what I like about it is that I hope what it really means is that the guy that turns here and becomes the heel isn't going to be Randy. Like I think that they're going to work so well together for a decent amount of time where all of a sudden Arcade Bro is going to have merchandise and everything. Maybe even matching gear for a little while. And then all of a sudden, like Riddle starts being the one that gets a little bit agitated and irritated and angry about it. And he's the one that drops Randy because that establishes Riddle, especially if he goes over in the feud.
Yes.
Now your blow off match, Randy can finally win because he'd be the baby face, and that's what baby faces do, especially legend baby faces, right?
Yeah.
So you would have that, but like you go 4 matches or something, monthly pay-per-views, and you have Riddle go over him each time, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, and then maybe somebody else has to help Randy win the final match, so that way you get another little rub on someone else, and Randy's the babyface at that point. I think it'd be great, and I think it'd be different than what we're used to in that situation.
We haven't done it since The Rock and Stone Cold. Remember, I think finally when Stone Cold decided his last match, Rock finally beat him because I think they'd been going, 3?
They went to 3 WrestleManias, yeah.
And each time Stone Cold won, and that third one, The Rock went over.
Right. And of course, they even talk about that in the biography where they're talking to The Rock, and he's like, I leaned in and I told him I love him, and Steve Austin said I love you too. And, that's when The Rock slapped him on the chest and like hopped up and went and, did his pose and everything. And at that point, nobody knew, but that was Steve Austin's last match.
We were talking about, I'm sorry to jump out, but they did the same thing with Edge and Foley. Remember Foley, Edge told Foley, I love you at the end of that match.
Yep.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, And you know, like we bring up Foley and Steve Austin, and a lot of people forget Steve Austin and Dude Love were WWE Tag Team Champions together. And you know, obviously you think about the Rock and Sock connection, again, very similar to this dichotomy that you've got. And I think that Randy is the one of the few guys that's established enough to where if you put him with a comedy act, that it can get the comedy act over. Because I mean, Dude Love was over, but he wasn't as over as Cactus Jack ever was,
no.
You know? But you could tell that Steve Austin, just like The Undertaker, never wanting to break character or smile or laugh about anything, you know, it's one of those moments where you just kind of feel like, man, this is one of those moments that you're like, I didn't realize these guys had these comedic genes. You know, like Kurt Angle sitting there saying, "Oh, my chicken costume." You know, like you would have never thought, especially at that point in his career, that Kurt Angle would have a line like that in him because he was still the Olympic hero at that point.
I feel like a real cowboy. Yippee-ki-yay. Gotcha.
Now I want to know when A&E is going to get that hat. Interestingly enough, that cowboy hat, and I don't know how many people actually know this, but that cowboy hat was bought in an airport like gift store as they were going through, and Steve Austin was like, "I got to use it." Like,
yeah. Let's see. So, what do you think of Sonya Deville? What's going on?
I mean, it's not like they're going to have Sonya Deville versus Adam Pearce in a match.
Do you think this should turn to maybe a heel manager for Charlotte, but not like Charlotte needs it, but you know what I mean?
You know, it's funny. I'll say this. Charlotte's about as stale as like month-old bread. So we know that she's talented. We know that she can talk on the mic. We know that she can that she does the work. And when you talk about women's matches, besides the Britt Baker Thunder Rosa match, Charlotte Flair's name is in almost every match of the year candidate for women's matches, except for that match, right? So I look at it and I go, maybe they're taking into account that she's stale, that she's boring, that I mean, like. It's like when John Cena was on TV every week.
Yeah.
You didn't realize what you had as the only truly established superstar on the roster that could be a page turner and someone that is also mainstream pop culture. And you know, like Charlotte has that kind of appeal. Sasha Banks has that kind of appeal. But we look at her and we go, man, I wish she'd take 6 months off. And we used to say the same thing about Roman. We used to say the same thing about John Cena. We used to say the same, you know, like anytime there's a guy that you're like, this guy has something, but for whatever reason, he's not clicking with the audience.
It worked for Roman.
Well, Roman went through a complete change of character. Like he literally became Hollywood Rock. Except he's not trying to entertain you. Like that's kind of like where he is now. And that's why I say when he was out with his leukemia and he was filming Hobbs and Shaw with The Rock, I bet those two over glasses of tequila late at night were probably sitting there saying, if you want to be the man in WWE and actually get respected for what you're doing, you need to do what I did, which is tell them that being the babyface isn't working anymore, and you want the opportunity to go heel. And I bet Roman's like, I don't think the old man will ever let me do it. And then The Rock would sit there and probably told him, then just don't come back. You know, like you're in a position with the pandemic right now that you don't have to work. They've already said your spot's here when you come back, but you don't have to do it. And I think that it was a leveraging point for Roman to allow him to have that ability to sit there and do that. Obviously, we're still supposed to be talking about Monday Night Raw, but what's that?
I said we'll get to SmackDown because there's a lot of them. I want to go over SmackDown too.
Well, yeah, because since we weren't here last week, we have to talk about last week's SmackDown as well as the most recent SmackDown.
Yeah,
because I mean something big happened, like real big.
And, yeah.
Okay. And we haven't even really discussed it, right? Now we obviously have the pay-per-view this Sunday, right? And we have a triple threat match for the WWE Championship. Bobby Lashley versus Strowman versus Drew McIntyre. Now, Lashley has McIntyre tonight on Monday Night Raw as well. And
yeah, Strowman last week.
Strowman last week because they're doing that anything you can do, I can do better thing between Drew and Strowman right now. Are we going to get a straight up heel turn from one of those two? And it's going to be Strowman, right? Like I don't see them making Drew a heel at this point.
But that might be why they do it. Because if you notice, Drew, and we talked about it, a lot of heels are just they're telling the truth. They're telling the truth, but people just don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? So if Drew's bitching enough about, hey, you shouldn't be in this match, why you guys, and then he flips it to how come this guy keeps getting in the matches and turns it that way. I think they could turn Drew heel.
Do you want to?
I think right now that his face run is about done. I'm tired. It's corny. I like Drew better as a heel.
Well, I think it's because he doesn't have any opponents. Like besides Bobby and besides Braun, Drew, he's already gone through Sheamus. So like at this point, it's not going to be Sheamus. So I know that you've been saying you hoped that the draft would happen sooner rather than later. And it would be interesting to trade Drew for Cesaro.
Yeah.
And that would allow Drew to have Sami Zayn that he could go up as a babyface versus heel, Baron Corbin go up babyface versus heel, Apollo Crews go up babyface against the heel. And then of course you've got the Usos and Roman and that whole high council, if you will. So it's interesting. But you're right. There's nothing about Drew's character currently that interests me. His matches have been solid. It's it's almost the same thing as Charlotte. It's he's gotten so good that he's plateaued because there's no one else that can compete with him. I mean, you could bring back Brock, but then you got Bobby and Brock on the same program. And I don't think that works either because you can't keep them apart for too long, yeah. So, all right.
That's about it.
Shayna and Nia versus oh wait, no, that was on SmackDown.
They versus Mandy and what's her face? That still was like.
So are they getting ready to break up the Miz and Morrison?
I think so.
And which one's going to be the baby?
Miz.
Are you sure? Because I'm beginning to think that the Miz still is going to play the heel better, and it looks like he's going to be the one that kicks Morrison out.
Yeah, but then once he kicks Morrison out, what are they going to do with Morrison? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they'll make him face, but I mean.
Well, I'm almost worried that he'll go after the 24/7 championship.
No,
because that's what happens when you forget about guys.
Send him down to NXT. I could see him as upcard NXT.
I mean, anybody that's
down there,
anybody that's on Raw, if they go back to NXT, are going to be upper card of NXT.
So if they do a switch, like bring somebody up and send him down, I won't say send him down because NXT is a better show, but you know what I'm saying? Trade him to NXT for somebody from NXT.
I wish that they actually looked at NXT as something that they could trade, but it really does seem like you just steal from them. You know, rarely do you have someone come back. Now, granted, they've had Breezango come back, they've had Finn come back, and they've had Ember Moon come back. But other than that, no one else really has come back. You know, at least for extended periods.
Yeah.
So speaking of NXT,
let's do it.
We've moved to Tuesday nights. Kyle O'Reilly's becoming an 80s washout, apparently.
I do not like his character.
It's terrible. And the only thing I can assume is that they said, what do you want to do? And I saw the joke on our wrestling group that he's basically being a dry version of Orange Cassidy.
I was just about to say Orange, and I didn't see that on the group, but I was just about to say he's Orange Cassidy.
But he's not, because he's a better wrestler. But he's a better wrestler. So, in fact, he's probably more of the character that we would accept Orange Cassidy wanting to be if Orange Cassidy gave a crap about anything. Because like everyone keeps, and I know we're supposed to be talking about NXT, but with Orange Cassidy, everyone, and you know, I'll go ahead and I'll do this real quick for it. With Orange Cassidy, I mean, you're going to have him versus Pac this week on AEW to determine who faces Kenny Omega at the pay-per-view. And they're leading up to where it looks like it's going to be Orange Cassidy versus Kenny Omega. I hope what they do is the classic trope of something causes the match to end in a schmaz, and because of the schmaz, you end up getting a three-way for the World Championship in AEW, because then you could see Kenny losing the title without ever losing the match. And what that would allow for is the really bitchy heel that complains, whines, and has temper tantrums because he lost his championship without ever losing the match.
Yeah, I can see that.
And what that would really allow for is him to continue having a feud with Jon Moxley and not having a title on the line at that point. Although Moxley says that he wants the title.
Well, and allow him to keep up, because remember, he's still the Impact champion. So they
wait, hold on. Is he, or is Michael Nakazawa? I couldn't figure that out based on who was wearing the belt this past week.
He's still the Impact champion, so they still got to throw that into the mix too. So yeah. Anyway, we'll go back to NXT. We'll come back to AEW.
So, all right.
NXT right now, what is tickling me about NXT, and it's so stupid, and I know you're gonna think it's stupid, but you probably know what my favorite part of NXT is. It's the fucking feud between Tino Moon and DiBiase.
Yes, the fact that so I loved the sequence where
there was two good ones, and there were 2 weeks.
When he walks into the watch store, and he wants to buy the watch, and then DiBiase goes, "Hey kid, that's a nice looking watch, but is it a $2 million watch?"
And it says something about it doesn't have any diamonds. He's talking about the diamonds in it.
He's like, but it doesn't have any diamonds.
And then this past week where he's like, he bought like the like a table or some shit at the club. He's like, I'm going to the club. He bought a table. He's like, you're not on the list. Excuse me, I am. You know who I am? And then that big stretch limo comes up. And DiBiase gets out and said, why buy a table? You can buy the whole bar.
So let me ask you something.
So I'm wondering, DiBiase going to wrestle. Do you think they're going to bring Junior in?
Well, I think what's going to happen is DiBiase is going to be his manager.
Oh, you think? Oh, okay.
I think would be good. But what if Cameron Grimes, all of a sudden you see him at like a board meeting somewhere and he buys out DiBiase? Like, what if all of a sudden he just bought DiBiase? Like DiBiase keeps getting one over, and then all of a sudden, like, he buys DiBiase.
That'd be funny.
So like he shows up at DiBiase Enterprises or something, and he's like, I just bought this place. This is all mine. to the moon,
So
like, I don't know where it's going, because what's the payoff? Now, granted, it has gotten Cameron Grimes to like nuclear heat levels of over, which is something his character was not going to get without this GameStop stock shit. His character just wasn't going to get over like that. But that music video that he did, and watching the old DiBiase videos because he's the new $1 Million Man,
yeah,
and not watching to the end and all that, like everything that he's doing is gold. And that like DiBiase doesn't show up unless like he's got to be reading the scripts on it, going, oh yeah, I'll be a part of that.
Yeah,
like this will get that kid over, But to your question, could it lead to Ted DiBiase Jr. coming back? I doubt it. They did a Where Is He Now on WWE Network about a year and a half ago, and he basically helps. He basically does like a camp for kids that just suffer from different types of anxiety issues.
Yeah. Well, or maybe DiBiase can bring up somebody new, you know what I'm saying, to manage against him. But I didn't even think about him managing Grimes. That would be awesome too.
See, I think that would be ultimately like when Grimes just sits there and goes, "Damn you, DiBiase!" like if all of a sudden he just sat there and said, "Why don't we team up and combine our resources?" And $1 Million Man probably be like, "Everybody's got a price." Like I don't know where it's gonna go, but I find it interesting. I'll tell you what else I find interesting right now.
When it first started, you were not a fan.
Oh, I wasn't a fan. I am not a fan of Cameron Grimes' look. But now that he's wearing like the top hat with like the suit coat with no shirt on underneath it, it's making me laugh.
You didn't like the To the Moon. You thought it was all stupid before, but now you dig it.
It's corny, but now it has a purpose and a reason behind it. And the fact that like he was using the phrase "to the moon" before it really had like a meaning behind it, and then it fit, like that's just fated perfectly for him. Like you couldn't have asked for a better moment like that. That right there is literally him saying "to the moon" 2 years ago didn't mean shit. But when all of a sudden all these meme stocks started saying "to the moon GME" and "to the moon Dogecoin" and all this other shit, like it just fit his character. And the fact that they threw in he just made all this money by buying a $3 stock and having it go to $300. Like, and the fact that he doesn't know what to do with the movie because he's a dumb redneck, like it's such a good comedic character.
Yes,
but you still don't take him seriously. That, like LA Knight walked in and he can be goofy. He can sit there and drop some rock-like lines on you and have that little bit of Southern twang in his way of saying it, but you still feel like there's a reason why you should fear that guy. Cameron Grimes, there's nothing really to fear about him.
Well, a lot of LA, which I'm surprised Vince let him get away with, but a lot of that LA Knight stuff he was doing when he was Eli Drake, and that and let me talk to you, dummy, and that's not that's not an insult, that's a fact of life. All those catchphrases he was using before he came over to WWE, which like I said, I'm surprised. So the only thing that's changed is his name.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Vince let him, because you know how Vince is. It's not something that he came up with.
Well, he's not working for Vince yet.
Not true.
And don't be surprised if all of a sudden Vince goes, "Which one of these catchphrases do you want to use now?" And he goes, No, I want to use what I always use. No, can't do that. Got to use one of these. We're gonna put it on a shirt. Like it's coming because you can tell that there's enough talent there. Like he literally is like an amalgam of The Rock and Steve Austin in one, and yet not as good as either of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, you kind of don't assume that he's going to be as good as either of them either, because I mean, you're talking about the two biggest superstars ever. But yet he's made it work so far with what he's got. And I just don't think his body of work is there in terms of actual wrestling to sit there and say this guy's going to be a main eventer at WrestleMania someday. So, that's all I got for NXT. I mean, Adam Cole has been on fire. Karrion Kross and Finn Balor have been doing their thing, and you know, just keeping it. What's that?
The NXT Women's Champion, which they got Indy, so they used her little thing again for our Silent Boy against her, to make her, you know, mad because, you know, he's giving flowers to Ember and what's her name, and which was, I think, one of my favorite things before that match, where the flowers came up to Ember and Shotzi, and Shotzi said, "Oh, you got flowers," and I said, and they looked at the card, saw it's from, and Ember's like, "I'm married. That's all you, girl."
So you know what's gonna end up coming out of all that is that Candice is the one sending the flowers, saying that Dexter Lumis. I mean, and it's so obvious. Although it was weird because Indy was so happy to be taken away by Dexter Lumis that one week, and then the very next week she was like not wanting anything to do with him. Like, I
think because they tried to make it, they tried to make it like he didn't care about her, or he didn't. I forget what episode it was, but yeah. So she's thinking, you know, no, and she's trying so hard not to like him, but she still does. It's going to come out. I think Indy's going to go face. She'll lead the way, and maybe Indy against Candice. So cool.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. And yeah, that's pretty much all that's going on with. Well, I mean, this week you've got Santos Escobar versus Kushida in a best 2 out of 3s match. That's going to be good. Like you have probably, if I had to say it, I would say that Escobar is probably the next Rey Mysterio.
Yes, but he's huge. He's bigger than Rey.
But I mean, everybody's bigger than Rey. Rey literally is 5'3" and 160 pounds.
Yeah.
But Escobar, I mean, he is the interesting thing about him, and I heard him on Busted Open this morning. He is a natural born Mexican wrestler. So it wasn't like he was born in the United States and then went to Mexico because he was Latino. He actually is Latino and was born in Mexico and learned English so that he would be a transcendent Mexican wrestler. Mm-hmm. So he actually made sure that he learned English at a young age so that he could bring it over to the States and be someone like a Rey Mysterio. Like he was talking specifically about how like the pressure that's on Dominic Mysterio being a 2nd generation wrestler, a 3rd generation wrestler, because Rey Mysterio is obviously Rey Mysterio Jr., but being a 3rd generation wrestler puts so much more pressure on your shoulders because everybody expects you to already be a physical specimen and have already absorbed like in-ring psychology from the time you were born, which just doesn't happen. Like some people have never been good at it, you know, like they just haven't. So anyways, but that match versus Kushida, that's going to be really interesting.
What do you think about Ciampa and Toothless Timmy?
I mean, I love Timothy Thatcher. I think that he is a very underutilized talent. I think that he has a very specific kind of match that he can work. But I think if you were to put him versus like Pete Dunne, those two could go an hour without ever climbing to the top rope, you know, or leaving the ring. Like they would literally just be putting themselves in like moves and holds to sit there and stretch and like it would be something that would make Stu Hart like come back to life to watch. Oh, because he was all about like that kind of mat wrestling and stretching, right? But you know me, I mean I'm one of the biggest Ciampa fans out there, so all things considered, I would totally be down with all of that.
Okay.
So, all right, Tino, we've now got 15 minutes to get through the rest of the show, and we've got a lot of AEW talk because last week was Blood and Guts.
Which they kept saying that it was like, oh, this match happened in WCW. I'm like, this wasn't, because they can't say
it was War Games. Yeah,
they can't say War Games, but that match, I didn't expect the Pinnacle to win. I actually thought Inner Circle was going to win that match.
So I totally expected Pinnacle to win. I did expect somebody to get tossed off the top, except I expected it to be Sammy Guevara. Because everyone keeps talking about how they want to push Sammy Guevara. Well, Sammy Guevara being the bitch that sits there and gives up in the match isn't exactly pushing him to superstardom as a babyface. If he had been the guy that got pushed off the top of the cage, and after Chris Jericho, who would not be as hurt by being the bitch that sits there and says, don't do it, you might kill him, would have pushed Sammy Guevara to superstardom. The match itself was okay. It wasn't as good as any of the War Games matches that WWE has done. The WWE one where they actually have the cages that the other wrestlers have to be in seems to add more of a spectacle to that, because you have that moment where, like, when one of the guys gets out of the cage, they always go and like run their mouth at the ones that are still in the other cage.
Yeah.
So and then you get like the hand coming out, like you know. So that's, I always like that about War Games. But I mean, Harwood was like busted open in the first 30 seconds. Jericho had this weird pasty looking stuff all over his face. I thought that, and what it probably was something to make sure that the blood was easily congealed after the match got over. But what it looked like, and I hate to say this, it looked like his hair color was coming out. And it was all over his face because of how sweaty he was. And like I said, I have a feeling it was something so that when he got bloody, you could just wipe it off and you'd be fine. Wardlow looked good, but the rest of the match looked super sloppy. And what's up with them allowing Shawn Spears to hit people across the head with a steel chair shot in this world of concussions and everything else?
Don't know.
So anyways, I wasn't blown away by the match. I kind of felt like, and here's my real issue with it. AEW is unopposed at this point. Sure, you want to have a blow-off match like this so that way you can move the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle away from each other. I get it. Mm-hmm. But you got a pay-per-view in a couple weeks. Why isn't this on the pay-per-view? And here's why. They are throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks to get that rating over 1 million. They are doing it week in, week out. Last week, before Blood and Guts, it was Tyson. Then it was Blood and Guts. This week it'll be the New Japan IWGP United States Championship match between Moxley and Nagata. Well, I don't really care. Nagata's like 60 years old. Like the guy could barely move. You know, like it's time to give it up. You were in WCW. You know, like that was 30 years ago. But they keep doing they keep doing that, and now they're unopposed. And I'm not saying that you need to cool it, but what I'm saying is that now is the time that you just put on good quality wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, because here's the problem. They're not doing that. They're not putting
they're not doing it because the same reason that WWE Raw sucks, because they don't have anybody opposing them. You know what I mean?
And I'm not saying that AEW sucks.
I'm not saying they suck either, but they're not putting their best foot forward because they don't have to go against NXT anymore. When they were on Wednesday, when they're both on Wednesday night,
they're literally a gimmick after a gimmick after a gimmick, week in, week out, every single week. And I am trying to appreciate their product. Like MJF standing on top of that cage and looking down and saying, "Thank you," was exactly what he said he was going to do. Fine with that. But I don't need to see Cody Rhodes going up against his best friend in real life, trying to get him over, because guess what? QT Marshall's never going to be over. It's time to just accept it. It's time to realize he's the Curtis Axel of AEW. Curtis Axel was a hell of a hand. Got The Rock ready for all of his matches against CM Punk and John Cena. But doesn't matter that he did all that. What matters is that when he was in front of a TV screen or a TV camera, nobody gave a reaction at all to him. Not a single fucking reaction to him. And that's why he's not there anymore.
Yeah.
You know, hell of a hand, good wrestler, but you never connected with him. QT Marshall, I ain't connecting with him. In fact, I immediately try to find something else on TV when QT Marshall's on. I mean, I'm not lying. That's literally what happens. So the fact that this era's Jeff Jarrett, Cody Rhodes, sits there and thinks that he can get his best friend over as a heel, ain't happening. Sorry. Which means I'm starting to give less shits about Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. All right.
By the way, Cody Rhodes is this era's Jeff Jarrett.
You already said that.
I know. And I'll make sure that the world hears me when I sit there and say that once again, it's a guy running the company thinking that he should be at the top of the card on a week in, week out basis.
But he's not. He's not main eventing the show. He's not at the top of the card. He's not.
Who went up against Shaq?
Okay, yeah, but he's not going for championship. Yeah, so there was. When Jeff Jarrett,
every time hold on. When Jeff Jarrett started TNA, he didn't go after the championship at the beginning. Ken Shamrock won it. Then Ron Killings won it. Then AJ Styles ended up winning it. Sure, Jeff Jarrett probably has more championship reigns in TNA than anybody else, but that's because when it came down to it and he thought that they needed star power, he thought that he was their biggest star. Same thing that's going to happen with Cody. Right now, they're doing it with Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega, exact same position as Cody Rhodes. And what did he do? He booked himself to be their champion. And then his best friend, who's a booker in another program, sat there and booked him to be their champion. Now, I'll tell you, we're all sitting there saying, we got plenty of guys that could be world champion in AEW. We got Pac that could be it. We got Ray Phoenix that could be it. We got Orange Cassidy that could be it. So far, you've had 3 world champions in 2 years. Those 3 champions have been 2 WWE guys and then the guy who runs the show.
Yeah. That's something you said 2 WWE. I forgot.
And that's it. But that's your entire span of world champions. Your tag team champions can kick out of every other tag team's finisher and not get pinned. But they hit their finisher once, match over. It's annoying as shit. It's horrible booking because you want people. Okay, we think Darby Allin's over now, right? Well, just to make sure that Darby Allin was over, what did we do? We put a 60-year veteran with him to make sure that everybody goes, hey, he's getting a rub from Sting.
60-year veteran?
Yeah, I'm trying to say that Sting's old.
Okay.
I mean, he's balder than me, bro.
He's what?
He's balder than me.
Next.
My problem is that sure, what they're saying is, oh, we're using the old guys properly as the managers for the new guys. I'm sorry. At this point, Lance Archer does not need Jake the Snake Roberts. Darby Allin does not need Sting. If you really want to make Darby Allin over, get him over by himself. Like Orange Cassidy, he doesn't need the best friends. The only nice thing about him with the best friends is that they're actually friends.
Yeah.
It's okay to have friends. It's just when it comes to him having a match against someone like Moxley or something else, guess what? He's having that match by himself. You know? That's why Orange is probably the most over guy that they've created. Although he's the exact same guy he was on the Indies. So they didn't even create him. It's just they gave him a platform and he's running with it. But even that, guy's got, from what I can tell, now granted, they'll tell me he's like 11-3 in his last 14 matches or something, but I've never seen that.
Oh, yeah.
So
he's probably on Dark.
You know, and so, and then we're getting to the point where we got Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian getting ready to go after the AEW championships again. And what I worry about is the fact that they've got the stipulation that they'll never tag again if they lose, right? Well, what I worry about that is that the Young Bucks can take everybody's finisher and kick out. But yet nobody kicks out of theirs.
I don't think they're going to let the I think they're going to let those two have a run with the belts before they split them up.
So they'll be the first 2-time tag team champions.
Yeah.
I love how like I know that AEW is trying to say that they're competition to the WWE. I know that they're trying to do that. And what bugs me about it though is that Kenny Omega comes out and says that he's got the most prestigious title in pro wrestling around his shoulder, right? That title's only been around for 2 years. There's no way it's the most prestigious title. There's only been 3 guys that have held it. The WWE title by itself, the world championship that they've got, has had over 50 people. I know, all of them. I get it. You have to promote yourself as the biggest entity. You get it. Except then you have him not even wearing the Impact Championship and having a nobody wear it. Yeah. You know, if their title meant so much that you were going to have a match for a title for title, you should wear that son of a bitch. Like not wearing it is a disgrace.
Well, if he's on the AEW championship, he's wearing his title when he goes to TNA.
Put him over the shoulders.
He wears it.
Put him over the shoulders.
Yeah. All right.
Or when you're not having a match, you know, just have a video package where you're sitting there like this and you got both championships behind you. You know? But like it's a disgrace to a wrestling company that's been around for 15 years to sit there and give their championship to a guy who doesn't even wear it when he's supposed to be drawing eyes to your product. Like that's the whole point of the deal, is to get people to watch Impact now because Kenny Omega is going to be there because he's the world champion there.
Yeah.
But then you don't even show their belt, which, by the way, they're so confused that they've got 2 different belts. They don't even know which is the right belt. Anyways. So, all right. I know that you want to get off here quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about SmackDown. I will start by saying thank you, Daniel Bryan, for everything you did. Would you stop doing that?
No, that one I do. So is the storyline, or do you, because I know he said his contract is up. Is he done for real, or is the storyline he's just going to be back on my TV in a couple of months?
His WWE contract ended.
Okay, well.
However, here's the interesting thing: Wrestling Observer and all of those different sites, PW Insider, all those are reporting that Daniel Bryan has not been evicted from talk in the WWE. So you can still say Daniel Bryan's name. So as of right now, he is on good terms with talent relations, but has not signed a contract. So right now, WWE believes that they have the inside track to re-signing him.
Okay.
And in good faith, I would assume that that is true because he is a star on Total Bellas.
Yes, he is.
And I would assume that his contract with that prevents him from wrestling for another company. Does not mean that he'll wrestle for WWE, but I would anticipate that what we'll probably see is Daniel Bryan show back up around SummerSlam time. The big thing that we have to remember is that a guy like Daniel Bryan, even though he hasn't always gotten along with WWE management, understands that the biggest shows of the year are WrestleMania and SummerSlam, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if you get a chance to go to whatever the big Ring of Honor show is. It doesn't matter that you get invited to Double or Nothing. They don't have the same appeal that WrestleMania does. Double or Nothing, I think they said did 180,000 buys, okay? Because it was still classic pay-per-view stuff. The last time WWE did a WrestleMania with a buy rate, it was over 1 million buys. That's 5 times the size. And that's now where WWE doesn't even have a roster built with mainstream pop culture icons anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so think about that. Like the idea that and again, we know that AEW has to make it sound like theirs is the most important thing in the world, but they all know it isn't. Like if Vince McMahon were to sit there and say, "Hey Cody, how about we do a you versus Triple H match at WrestleMania this year, and we'll even put you over." Do you not think that Cody Rhodes is going to say, "I'll be there"? Now, granted, it's not going to happen. But hypothetically, if they said, "Okay, you got 2 options. We could have Triple H versus you at Double or Nothing, and we'll do 1/5 of the money, or we could do you and Triple H at WrestleMania, where we know we just had 9 million extra subscribers on Peacock." Like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know, like the only show that I would think might do more than that 180,000 buys that we're talking about when it comes to the Double or Nothing or whatever is Wrestle Kingdom. And that's only if you have Jericho and Moxley on that show.
Yeah.
You know, and then if you say, "Okay, we've signed Brock Lesnar to come out to Wrestle Kingdom," you're going to do 1 million. Because people will pay to see Brock Lesnar go apeshit on somebody. Yeah. Especially if you sit there and you put them in a never open heavyweight championship match and you just have them basically like killing each other for real. You know, like you probably have to have 4 people pull Brock Lesnar off of whoever's the champ at that point. But so all that said and done, SmackDown.
My new.
We got Jimmy Uso finally showed up.
Yes.
He is cleared to wrestle, by the way.
Yes.
So Jimmy Uso shows up, comes out, gives hugs to Roman and Jay. And then he proceeds to basically tell Jay that Jay should stop being a bitch. And I'll tell you, I loved the empowered speech of him basically sitting there saying, although he started it by saying, "I was sitting at home and then you gave up when Roman pulled me out of the back." Wait, weren't you at home at the beginning of this promo?
He got lost. He's been out for a year. Give him a break.
He was fired up. I get it. But the whole idea that he said, "I would have never given up," is bullshit. That son of a bitch was like tapping like constantly, and he was the one in the guillotine. So that son of a bitch was a liar. But Anyways, I digress. My point to this is that it looks like somehow we're going to get away from Roman and Cesaro, and we're going to have more of the family problems between the Usos and Roman.
So you think he planted that seed in Jimmy planted the seed in Jay's head, and they're going to split off? Because at one point he's like, well, yeah, we're the tag team champs, and Roman is the world champ. You know, we got all the belts.
Here's the problem with that. If I were Jey Uso right now, and I've main evented SmackDowns, I've main evented pay-per-views in singles matches, why the hell would I ever want to be a tag team champion again?
Yeah.
You know? Go after the Intercontinental belt. Like, and in fact, if I were Jey Uso, I'd be like, Us, I don't need you anymore. I love you. I'll be in your corner when you need me, but I'm a singles guy now. I've main evented pay-per-views. We, as a tag team, never main evented anything.
But now that he's under the
tutelage,
the tribal whatever board,
the tutelage,
they could probably and with Paul Heyman as a manager too, they can make that happen.
Do you find it weird how Paul Heyman just stares at Roman Reigns when Roman Reigns is watching the television prompters?
Yes.
Like he does not take his eyes off of him.
I think he's got a man crush. He's got a man crush.
Well, and I posted that on our Facebook group today. Find you a partner that looks at you the way that Paul Heyman looks at Roman Reigns. Paul is so good, man, but I'll tell you, that's creepy as shit. All right, so Friday night, Kevin Owens' birthday. Everybody's talking about his birthday. He gives Otis a stunner and then gets kicked out of the ring, and he doesn't win the match. On his fucking birthday. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, Kevin Owens is as over as anybody on that roster. He stunned Jake Paul at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And then you proceed to nothing him.
Yep. Yeah. Which my frustration.
The only reason why I think that they're doing it is because they don't want him overshadowing Cesaro. Because they realize Owens has all that charisma. He's got that fire. He's got that passion. He draws it out of the crowd when they're not even in person.
I think what's going to happen is he's not going to sign and he's going to go away.
He signed like a 5-year deal when he signed.
How long ago was that?
Like 2 years ago.
Okay. When it's up, he won't resign.
I doubt it, because again, what'll happen when his contract comes up, they're going to be like, you know, Kevin, we were thinking about Kevin Owens and KO Mania actually main eventing WrestleMania this year. And he'll be like, all right.
How about that? You better give me a title and a decent title run, bitches.
Well, Cesaro just re-signed his contract. Now he's got a title match.
Don't mean he'll win it.
Doesn't mean he'll win it. You're right. Because right now Cesaro wears his underwear down to the ring.
That and he's going against Roman. They're not. No. And if he wins it, Roman's going to win it right back. So hey, we give you your title.
So, and I've already told you that the best way to do this match on Sunday is quite simple. You have the Usos come down, the Usos start getting into a little tiff or whatever, and it causes Roman to sit there and start yelling at both of them outside the ring. Cesaro rolls him up, and the referee does a mildly fast count. 1, 2, 3, right? Cesaro takes the championship and realizes he can't get out by going up the ramp, so he goes out through the Thunderdome and gets out of there, gets the hell out of Dodge. And then for the next 7 days or 5 days or whatever until Friday again, we're all sitting there going, is Cesaro the champion? And then Friday night, you have Paul Heyman at the beginning of the episode banging on Adam Pearce's door, and Adam Pearce say, he won the title. It's fair. It's just the way it is. So what's Paul Heyman do? He goes banging on Sonya Deville's door. Sonya Deville says, I see your point, Paul. Let me make a decision. And by the end of the episode, I'll explain it. And at the end of the episode, she comes out and says, the referee did a fast count. Cesaro, you've got until the count of whatever to come back down and hand over the belt. And then Roman Reigns comes down with a big shit-eating grin on his face. And Paul Heyman has an even bigger shit-eating grin on his face because he's always got that shit-eating grin. He's like, you know? And then he comes down and he takes the belt from Sonya Deville and hands it over to Roman. And all of a sudden, like, security has to stop Cesaro because Roman sits there and says, see, I told you were never going to take this belt from me. But you thought you borrowed this belt. You didn't own this belt. This is my belt. You're lucky I fed you last week when I gave you that world title match. Now, back to the end of the line, son. You know? And that will make Cesaro, without Cesaro ever having to open his damn mouth. Like, and you know what's funny about that is I've told that scenario to multiple people, and each time they're like, yeah, that's really good, but I'm like, but what? And they go, but it makes too much sense.
Yeah, that's why it's not going to happen.
That's why it's not going to happen. Although, you know, Tino, there have been enough people that have watched our show from the WWE that at this point, maybe, just maybe, we got one of these and they're listening and they want to go ahead and take that and be like, oh yeah, we got the great legend sitting there dropping a comment. It just says 666. Great legend. I don't know what you mean by all that, brother, but welcome to the show, Tino. So I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I'm done talking wrestling really at this point, but I was talking to a buddy of mine for the first time in a little while over the phone the other day, and he said, Potsy, I got to tell you, I never heard your Diamond Dallas Page impression before, but it's damn good. Because, you know, I told him the story, and in fact, I met Diamond Dallas Page at a GameStop manager conference. So he told me that what I should do is post on Twitter and everything for a segment on our show that would be me doing my impression of Diamond Dallas Page giving life advice.
Oh, Jesus. That is so scary in so many ways. I don't.
Legend, oh legend. You are definitely doing something else tonight, man. And due to that, I will have a little bit of the burb in your honor, sir. But yeah, Tino, he was telling me that I should put a picture of Diamond Dallas Page up on my screen. Oh, we've got Carson Woodard in the audience now, just as we're getting ready to get off of here, Tino. But imagine me sitting there giving life advice in my impression of Diamond Dallas Page. You've heard it.
Yeah.
You don't like it?
Yeah. Give them a little piece of it. Let them be the judge.
All right, now that I said that, I probably should do a little impression, right? Be like, hey yo, it's Diamond Dallas Page. Hey bro, you listening, bro? I think you ought to do some of that yoga, bro. What do you think, bro? Huh?
You sound like Russo. You got too many bros in there.
Yeah, Well, okay. So if I was really doing Diamond Dallas Page, it'd be like, "Hey monkey, hey monkey, self high five, bro. Me and Karl Malone, we're gonna go out and tie one on. What do you think, bro?" It's not your mama's. Carson's right. It's not your mama's yoga.
On that note,
he's got more bros than Mario.
Right?
Oh, guys, thank you so much for hopping in the show here. If you get a chance, you might want to listen to the beginning of the episode when I talked about when I met the Miz. On top of that, predictions for Sunday, Tino. You got any quick ones? Bobby Lashley goes over.
Yeah.
Bianca goes over. Roman goes over.
Bianca goes over. Tamina and
Natty
go over.
Do the Mysterios go over?
Yes.
Was that Nicole saying no?
She was talking to the dog, but it just happened to be. It's perfect timing.
It really was. It really was.
That was awesome. Yeah, Mysterios go over.
So the Mysterios go over. Does Apollo Crews have a match?
If he does, he goes over.
Did you notice how they changed Dabba-Kato's name?
Yeah. You notice how I think Sami Zayn's about to go face, because I think he's about to go back for the Intercontinental belt again.
Does kind of look that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, Tino, I know you want to tap out, but I ain't quitting.
Just shut up, bitch. Thank you, folks. And thank you guys for coming in. Thank you for watching. You can check that fool out on the Twitter machine at Rob Podcheck. You can check
at Podcheck on Twitter.
Podcheck. You can check me out at Hootie Fan.
As he almost has like a cardiac arrest right there.
On Insta, he is Rob Podcheck, right?
Yes.
And I am SC Tino. On the Twitter, you can check out the show Potsy and Tino. On Facebook, we're the Potsy and Tino Show. Excuse me. You can check us out on YouTube. If you're checking us out now, you know that link there. Give them your Twitch, Rob.
Rob Potsy Podcheck on Twitch.
We want to say
and by the way, I may stream some Resident Evil 8 this week.
I'm about to check that out.
Oh, it's good. I already finished it once.
All right. So, as always, we want to say thank you to Adam's House Cats for our theme song, which is a wrestling song. You can check that out on iTunes for 99 cents. And as always, in Charlotte.
In Charlotte?
The big house on the hill. Yeah, that's kind of.
Ew.
Ew. Woo!
Good night. Woo! Good night, everybody. Hopefully next week we'll have some theme music. do 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 do. Thinking. Yo, monkey is DDP.
Holla, holla, player.
We didn't even talk about Teddy Long. I thought he was going to announce a 6-pack challenge match.
He kept saying, "You're going against the Undertaker."
So I guess since he's retired, you go up against King Booker. Nope, that's not going to work.
You do the Teddy Long? Sami Zayn's like, I don't want to do it.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
I clicked the wrong button.
I was about to say it was still live. I'm like,
yeah, you're like.